research suggests the average age for getting your first phone is now below 9.5 years old, as parents battle with worries that their child will feel left out. Let's speak now to a psychologist and author of Generation Zombie, Why Devices Are Harming Our Children and What We Can Do About It, Dr. Charlotte Armitage. Dr. Armitage, thanks so much for joining me on this. So what is the sort of average age, do you think, these days when people get a smartphone?
I mean, we've got sort of 25% of 3 to 4 year olds owning their own smartphone at the moment. So the age is getting younger and younger, and it's problematic.
And at what age is it such a problem? Is it any age?
I think the research shows that the younger a child gets a phone, then the poorer the mental health outcomes as they get older. So, my advice would be to leave the devices as long as you possibly can. When children are getting devices at this sort of early age, it's impacting everything, really. It impacts their development, impacts their speech and language, impacts their eyesight, musculoskeletal issues. It has an impact on absolutely everything.
That's really interesting. So in its own right, it can worsen those things as opposed to just because it distracts their attention from other areas?
I mean, obviously, it's the impact that it has on... So children innately want to get up, move around and explore the environment, and when they're quite young, and it's this movement and exploration of the environment which encourages that sort of musculoskeletal development, grows some fine motor skills, helps to build strength. I did hear a really sad story the other week of a child who had started school and they couldn't sit up in their chair because they didn't have any core strength, because they spent so much time sat behind a device in that sort of 0 to 4 period. When it came to going to school, they were unable to sit at a chair. And apparently stamina is a problem amongst younger children in school now because they're not used to running around outdoors. So the issue is how the device poses a barrier to our interaction with the real world, and children need that interaction with the real world for their development. So even with speech and language, children don't really learn from a device or from an app or from a screen as much as it's marketed to children. They don't. They learn from engaging in and listening to language, so interacting with another person, really. Children engage through real world, learn through engaging in real world play.
And in terms of tips of how to solve this, presumably one tip is, just hold off getting your kid a phone for as long as possible. But what else can be done at home by parents to try and put off the costs of this?
Ideally, delay as long as possible. Now, if your child does have a device, I'd recommend setting some boundaries on that. And it's easy enough to do. I think we as the adults as well are a bit of a problem. We need to model healthy device use behaviours because our children will imitate and learn from us as well. So if we can model those healthy behaviours, but set some rules in the household. So when is it acceptable to use our phones? Where is it acceptable? So it might be that you don't have devices upstairs, you don't have them in the bedroom, they're maybe all charged downstairs. You maybe don't have it in a certain room. One thing I'd recommend is no devices at the dinner table, if you just even start with that. I know quite a few people who've tried this and they have noticed changes in their children, in their speech and language development, in their emotional vocabulary, in their well-being, just through having that space around the table to communicate about their day and how they are and how they're feeling ultimately. So just create some device-free zones. Really what we need to do is set some boundaries, change the social etiquette surrounding how devices are used, because at the moment people just use them all the time. How common is it now to see children sat on a device in a restaurant? Hopefully in time that will become a less common sight.
What about at schools?
Yeah, schools, I think schools should be teaching healthy device use behaviours. So ideally, as we teach about drugs and alcohol, sex and relationships, personal hygiene, we now, I think, unfortunately have to have this obligation to teach children what does healthy device use behaviour look like, and that is going to be really different for young children to teenagers. And helping children to become more self-aware about how the device is impacting them. So I've done work with schools, and It's interesting because teenagers will quite often say they only really have it because everyone else has it. So there's that social contagion element of it. And to be honest, you referred to it at the start of our conversation. Children are getting phones younger and younger because parents fear that their child is missing out. And that is the issue. It's the social contagion. So I think the more children that don't have them, the more children that will start to sort of wean off them or not use them as much. But teenagers say they prefer to have conversations in real life. They prefer to speak to their friends in person, see their friends in person. They only do it via phone because that's there and that's what they're doing. But it affects everything, like all of our pillars of health, though, sleep, diet, exercise, mental health, interpersonal skills. It affects everything. And when children realise the impact it's having, they will, or we're giving them the skills to be able to make healthier choices. I mean, regarding whether phones should be banned in schools, I mean, I would say yes, because they are disruptive during the day. But I think what we've seen is that the problems from devices relate more to how they are used in their free time rather than how they are used at school.